Shalom, shalom. Davon Mays here. This is part three of Kanye, Kyrie, Martin Luther King, and what the Torah says. Just a recap, real quick. We were talking about foreigners and how the word foreigner can sometimes refer to Israel, but many times it's actually referring to a foreigner, as we see in Deuteronomy 14:21. You shall not eat anything that dies of itself. You may give it to the alien who is within your gates, that he may eat it. An alien would be a foreigner, or you may sell it to a foreigner, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. So, an alien, foreigner, stranger, all these words can refer to people that are not Israel, because it says, you may sell it to them, that he may eat it. So if alien and stranger and foreigner always refer to Israel, then they would be selling the food to themselves. But the Most High said you are a holy people, and you can't do that. So you have to really put these things in a context when you're reading about the alien, the foreigner, and the stranger, and the actual words used to describe these things. So moving on, when foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, Obadiah 1 and 11, in the day that you stood on the other side, in the day that strangers carried captive his forces, when foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, even you were as one of them. Who is this talking about? What's the context of this? Because if foreigner refers and strangers refer to Israel, did Israelites invade their own land as strangers and foreigners and take their own people captive? Did they, did they cheer on the other people to invade and take their own people? So the words here is Zarim, 2114 in the Strongs, and Nokri, 5237. So in Obadiah 1, verse 1, the vision of Obadiah says, thus says the Lord God concerning Edom. So Edom would be in that day, you were as one of them, as one of the strangers or the foreigners. Isaiah 60 and 10, the sons of foreigners shall build up your walls, and their kings shall minister to you. For in my wrath I struck you, but in my favor I have had mercy on you. So are these foreigners also Israelites that's going to build up your walls? Because it says the sons of the foreigners. If these sons are Israelites, then they wouldn't be foreigners, they would be sons of Israel. So you really got to, put things in perspective and listen to people when they're trying to explain that this is talking about only Israelites when you see the word foreign or a stranger or alien, because they want this doctrine of only Israel is saved and all these different things, when even the New Testament doesn't say that. It says go to all nations and baptize people, right? And all these different things. Paul talks about the grafting of the nations and all these different things, but that's just a doctrine that they want Israel to be exclusive to black people. And specifically, not all, but a lot of the groups, only black people in America. Anybody else is not Israel to them. The people of Jerusalem you have sold to the Greeks. So in the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 4 through 6, indeed, what have you done? What have you to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all the coast of Philistia? Will you retaliate against me? But if you retaliate against me swiftly and speedily, I will return your retaliation upon your own head, because you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my prized possessions. Also, the people of Judah and the people of Jerusalem you have sold to the Greeks, which is the Torah calls Javan, that you may remove them far from their borders. So if people were sold to the Greeks years and years and years ago, and they were removed far from their borders. Now let's think about this. If I'm living in Israel, let's say I'm black, or any nationality for that matter, and I get sold to the people in Greece, right? Greece is not so much an international place, but it does have a lot of traffic through there, right? It's, I don't know if it's known as an international city, but we know many people even today travel to Greece, right? So you marry somebody there from Greece, right? Eventually. and you're not around nobody else that's black or whatever you are. And then your kids are going to marry people that are in Greece and so on and so forth. Your your descendants are going to start looking Greek, whatever that meant, 2,000 years ago, whatever. So you fast forward to today with people moving, jobs, wars, famines, all type of reasons, business, different reasons people move around. You can't expect everybody to look the same. 2,000 years of generations, but you have no idea who got married and where they moved to and all these different things. And this is just this scenario because it talks about Tyre and Sidon and all the coast of Philistia. It says you sold them to the Greeks. So you got three different nations mentioned here, and it says all the coasts of Philistia. Ain't no telling where these Israelites got scattered so long ago. To say that they all ended up in Africa on the slave ships, let's think about this, y'all. It's not very likely. Some, of course. All, no. Sorry. Now, another big problem is the racist part of it, to where even if some Israelites accept other people to be Israelites, they can only be people of color. Where in the Torah does it say that? It don't. Now, depending on who you listen to, depending on your studies, there's different opinions on who Japheth was and what he looked like. And there's Talmudic literature describing the colors of people. But again, people 3,000 years ago living in certain regions aren't necessarily the people that are there today, and people mix and move around. So Genesis 10, 1 through 3. Now, this is the genealogy of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the sons were born to them, after the flood. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. So here we see Ashkenaz, where we see the early descendants or the early ancestors of what people call the Ashkenazi Jews. So the Ashkenazi Jews as a people go back even into the Tanakh. Genesis 9 and 27. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. So let's put this in perspective. Some people won't accept, or some people don't know, or some people don't care that the word Ashkenaz is actually in the Torah. They'll say, oh, well, those people just call themselves Ashkenaz. That's really not them. Let's say that's the case. Okay, fine. Let's just say these Ashkenazi Jews are just Europeans from whatever the descent you're going to give them. They're just white Europeans. They're not Ashkenazi. Whatever argument you want to use, they're just some white people that converted hundreds of years ago. Okay. Most people are still going to put them in the category of Japheth, because the Table of Nations mentions all the nations in the ancient world, whom all the descendants of the people in this world live today. So you got to put them somewhere. Most people don't want to put them under Shem. They don't want to put them under Ham for sure. And they're forced to put them under Japheth. Okay, so if you're going to go that route, let's just deal with that. Genesis 9:27. If God's going to enlarge Japheth and he dwell in the tents of Shem, who is Shem the ancestor of? Israel. Right? Abraham comes from Shem. The Israelites come from Shem. So if God's going to enlarge Japheth and he dwell in the tents of Shem, and these people end up converting, do the math. Okay? 1 Chronicles 1, 24 through 28. Shem, Arphaxad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Ru, Serug, Nahor, Terah, and Abram, who is Abraham. The sons of Abraham were Isaac and Ishmael. Go back to Shem. So if Japheth is going to dwell in the tents of Shem, what does that mean? There's some connection if you dwell in somebody's tent. It can be physical, it could be spiritual, it can be influential, however you want to play with this, because people are going to play with that, what that really means. You can't deny it's in the text. They're going to be enlarged and they're going to dwell in the tents of Shem. There's a connection to Shem, which eventually will become Israel, and Japheth, and Ashkenaz, who comes from Japheth. In the text. This is not a conspiracy theory. So converts. Ezekiel 47, 21 and 23 through 23. Thus you shall divide this land among yourself according to the tribes of Israel. It shall be that you will divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves and for the strangers who dwell among you and who bear children among you. Again, if these people are strangers, then it would just basically be saying, give them their inheritance, right? But it says that the strangers who dwell among you, not the strangers who come back home to receive their inheritance. Strangers who dwell among you and bear children among you, they shall be to you as native born. Why would God have to tell us they shall be to you as native born if they're already Israelites? They shall be to you as native born among the children of Israel. They shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall be that in whatever tribe that stranger dwells, there you shall give him his inheritance, says the Lord God. So if a convert comes, picks a tribe, marries into the tribe and has children, he is to be considered a native born. Because an argument is, if somebody converted 2,000 years ago or 200 years ago, however long ago, they're always a convert. No, that person is a convert. His children are native born from that point on. They don't like this verse because they want to keep people, even if they don't like the convert, is right there, but they don't like the convert being able to be called native born, meaning he's got the same status as you. You can't call him a convert anymore. You can call his dad a convert or his mom or whoever came to convert, but once they have children, that's it. They shall be to you as native born among the children of Israel. They shall have an inheritance. You got to give him his land. You got to give him what's his. Now he is an Israelite. And it shall be that in whatever tribe the stranger dwells in, there you shall give him his inheritance. What is he inheriting if he's not an Israelite? You can't sell him any land. The Torah says you may never sell the land because it's mine, God says. If it's God's land and he's not an Israelite, what is his inheritance if he's not native born to you? So this is not only about the Ashkenazi Jews or the Sephardic or whatever other Israelites there are that people don't like. This goes for anybody, Yemenites, Africans, Russians, Jamaicans, whatever you are, and you come and convert. Nobody can take away your inheritance once you join Israel. That's it. This is not an exclusive club to Black people from in the slave trade in America. Sorry. It's not. Isaiah 56, 1 through 5. Keep justice and do righteousness. For my salvation is about to come and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man who does this and the son of man who lays hold of it, who keeps from defiling the Sabbath and keeps his hand from doing any evil. Do not let the son of the foreigner who has joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, the Lord has utterly separated me from his people. Nor let the eunuch say, here I am a dry tree, for thus says the Lord God. For thus says the Lord, to the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths and choose what pleases me and hold fast my covenant, even to them I will give in my house and within my walls a place and a name better than that of sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. So here God is telling the foreigners, don't say God has separated me from his people. Why? Because they kept the Sabbath, they hold fast to the covenant. Remember we talked about in the first video, if you're not keeping the Sabbath, if you're not circumcised or you're not putting on tefillin, You are cut off from your people. Excuse me. You're cut off. So you're not an Israelite if you're not keeping those three things. So if a foreigner comes, converts, keeps Shabbat, keeps the covenant, I will give him a name within my walls. Even to them I will give in my house and within my walls a place and a name better than that of sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Like he had to cut off people who broke his covenant. Why? Because these people are holding on to the covenant. So anybody who comes and converts and keeps the laws of God, you can't call them fake. They can call you fake because you're the one cut off if you're not keeping these laws. You're the one that's cut off. You're the one that's fake. Especially if you know you're a bloodline descendant of Israel and you're not keeping those three covenants. You're the one that's cut off. You're the faker. So I don't know why people don't. I'm not going to say they don't read. I really just think they don't care. They're just being their feelings. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. That's just what it seems like. Isaiah 56, 6-8. Also the sons of the foreigner who join themselves to the Lord to serve him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants. Everyone who keeps from defiling the Sabbath and holds fast my covenant, even them I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house should be called a house of prayer for all nations. It don't say except this nation or that nation. It says all nations. The Lord God who gathers the outcasts of Israel says, yet I will gather to him others besides those who are gathered to him. Now we know there's a couple of exceptions of nations who got problems that the Most High deals with. We know Edom has some problems. That doesn't mean they couldn't convert, but eventually those who stay Edomites with that ideology, they're going to have a serious problem. We'll get to that, but actually I might not even cover that because that's kind of a whole nother topic. But the point is, it says my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. And if Edom is destroyed, in the Gog and Magog war, whenever that happens, the nations that don't survive, then of course you're not going to be around. But again, it's not going to be everybody from that nation. It's only going to be the people who win against Israel. Because, in every group or club or whatever you want to deal with, you got your bad seeds and your good seeds. So, and it says, yet I will gather to him others besides those who are gathered to him. Who's going to be gathered to Israel besides those who are already gathered? A house of prayer for all nations. So who cannot convert? Deuteronomy 23, 3-8. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever, because they did not meet you with bread and water on the road when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Balaam, the son of Beor, from Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse you. Nevertheless, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam, but the Lord your God turned the curse into a blessing for you, because the Lord your God loves you. You shall not seek their peace nor their prosperity all your days forever. Psalm 83. Read Psalm 83. You shall not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. You shall not abhor an Egyptian, because you are an alien in his land. The children of the third generation born to them may enter the assembly of the Lord. So those who hold anybody to be an Edomite, they can convert. The children of the third generation born to them may enter the assembly of the Lord. There was a slight restriction, but they can still convert. So if you're not reading these verses, then you might have your biases and your ignorances. But right there, Edomites can convert. Look in the background of Obadiah. Was he an Edomite? The prophet that we just read? Doeg, the Edomite, was in the army of Israel. The one who told on King David, Edomite. So put these things in perspective. So the bloodline versus the covenant and the religion. So this is going to, I have to, explain this. So Numbers 1 and 20. Now the children of Reuben, Israel's oldest son, their genealogies by their families, by their father's house, according to the number of names, every male individually from 20 years old and above, all who are able to go to war. So when you read Numbers chapter 1, it basically tells you the father passes along the tribal identity. The confusion is the mother holds the covenant and the religion or the beliefs. And what does that mean specifically? If I'm from the tribe of Reuben and I have children with a woman who's not an Israelite, technically, biologically, that's my son, but he's not a Jew. Why? Because the religion goes through the mother. Here's what I'm talking about. Ezra chapter 10, verse 1 through 3. Now, while Ezra was praying, and while he was confessing, weeping, and bowing down before the house of God, a very large assembly of men, women, and children gathered to him from Israel. For the people wept very bitterly. And Shechaniah, the son of Jehiel, one of the sons of Elam, spoke up and said to Ezra, "We have trespassed against our God and have taken pagan wives from the peoples of the land. Yet now there is hope in Israel in spite of this. Now, therefore, let us make a covenant with our God to put away all these wives and those who have been born to them, according to the advice of my master and those who tremble at the commandment of our God. Let it be done according to the law." So if these children had Israelite daddies, right? If they're coming back from Babylon, then most of these people are from Judah. Maybe some Benjamites and some Levites, but let's just say, Judah was the dominant tribe. So let's say, and it really doesn't matter what tribe. Let's just, for argument's sake, they would be Jewish by the tribe, right? But it says, let us put away these wives and those who have been born to them. Why are they sending the kids away if they're Jewish kids? Why not just get rid of the wives who are pagan? You worship idols, you're pagan? Okay, go back to your land. But give me my son. Because the beliefs, the religion, the nurturing of the child goes through the mother. Let it be done according to the law. Genesis 17, 18 through 19. And Abraham said to God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before you." Then God said, "No, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him." Ishmael was the son of Abraham. Technically, he would have been an Abrahamite, right? Or whatever. But the Most High said, "No, your wife Sarah, I'm going to do it through her because I'm going to have the religion go through her, not you. Your wife Hagar, that's my covenant ain't with her." Ishmael was born first, but he had a different mom. We see how important the mother is. It had to go through Sarah. Because Abraham could have been like, "Look, he's my son. Doesn't matter who the mom is." The Most High said, "No, it matters." He said, "No, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son. It's going to come through her." Deuteronomy 7, 1 through 4. When the Lord your God brings you into the land which you go to possess and has cast out many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. And when the Lord your God delivers them over to you, you shall conquer them and utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, nor show mercy to them, nor shall you make marriages with them. You shall not give your daughter to their son, nor take their daughters for your son, for they will turn your sons away from following me. Is why they had to put away the pagan women in Ezra chapter 10. They will turn your sons away from following me. Why was the Most High upset with Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 11? Because of all the foreign women Solomon married. They will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. So the anger of the Lord will be aroused against you and destroy you suddenly. What happened to Solomon's kingdom? Because of all those pagan wives. This is the power of women, the influence that they have over the children. They will turn your sons away from following me. It doesn't say their sons will turn your daughters away from following me, nor take their daughter for your son. The tribal identity does go through the father, but the covenant came through Sarah. I hope that makes sense. So, are Ashkenazi Jews Moabites or Ammonites? Genesis 10 to 10, chapter 10, verse 2 through 3. So the sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. Genesis 19, 36 through 38. Thus, both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. Ashkenaz existed before Ammon and Moab. So, if Ashkenaz are the descendants of Japheth, and Japheth is to dwell in the tents of Shem, then they can convert. But Moab and Ammon, we were told, cannot convert. And this goes for any other race, religion. Any other race. I'm bringing up the Ashkenazi Jews because most people, when they talk about Jews, this is who they're referring to. Most of the time. Unless they specifically say the Ethiopian Jews or something like that. But most of the time, people say Jews, they're usually referring to the Ashkenazi Jews. They're the most prominent in the world today, most notable, most famous, popular, however you want to look at that. As far as media coverage goes, most of the time when people talk about Jews, it's an Ashkenazi Jew. When people want to talk about Black Israelites, they usually say the Black Hebrew Israelites, usually. Not always, but most of the time. So, I've been accused of, why are you defending the Ashkenazi Jews? I'm not defending them. I'm defending what the Torah says about anybody who converts and keeps the Torah. If you're an Ashkenazi Jew and you don't keep the laws of the Torah, like I've explained, the Shabbat, Tefillin, and circumcision, they're cut off just like anybody else. Reform and conservative Jews who don't keep the Torah as prescribed by the law, they cut off too. They're fake. Just as much as the Christian Hebrew Israelites are fake because they don't keep the laws, the ones who teach that the law has been done away with. So you got fake Ashkenazi Jews and you got fake Black Hebrew Israelite Jews, if they are Jews, any of them. And not my opinion, look at statistics, do the research. Many Jews, not just Ashkenazi, but many Jews in the world are not even Jewish because they didn't marry other Jews. Many of them marry Gentiles all the time, and they call themselves Jews. They call their children Jews, but they've been cut off according to the Torah, and their children technically aren't Jewish, having reform conversions and conservative conversions and stuff like that. Halakhically, according to halakha or the law, it's not kosher, so they're not Jews either. They're Jews in name, but according to the law of the Torah, they're not legally converts. Just because somebody says they're Jewish doesn't mean that they're actually a part of the nation, because they could be cut off by not keeping the laws. Now, does anybody know the personal history of everybody who's ever called themselves a Jew? No. But statistically, we know many of the Jews who marry Gentiles. So if you're a reform or conservative and you don't keep Shabbat according to the law, you're cut off. If you don't put on tefillin, you're cut off. If you're not circumcising your children, you're cut off. On top of all the other laws of being an Israelite, eating kosher, all the laws associated in the Torah. We know we don't have to do the sacrificial, they don't have to do the sacrificial laws, but overall, the laws that are attainable to do, and you're not doing them, you're cut off, as the Most High said. And I went over those points in the first two videos so far. So this is not about Ashkenazi Jews. This is not about Sephardic Jews. This is about anybody who claims to be an Israelite and not keeping the law. And if you convert and you do keep the law, you're real. You're a native born according to the Torah. So don't let nobody tell you you're fake. Period. Period. But I will provoke them to jealousy by those who are not a nation. Deuteronomy 32:21. They have provoked me to jealousy by what is not God. They have moved me to anger by their foolish idols, but I will provoke them to jealousy by those who are not a nation. I will move them to anger by a foolish nation. So many different commentaries on this. So, Christina, the Christian perspective is this is the church that has replaced Israel. Now, I'm not saying everybody's perspective, and I'm not saying every Christian, but a Christian perspective is that this is the church that has replaced Israel. You know, replacement theology is rampant in the Christian world. The Black Hebrew Israelites, which are mostly Christians, believe this to be the Ashkenazi Jews. Didn't Kanye say he was jealous of them? Look at all the videos. The word jealousy came up. He was very envious how they roll on certain situations, keeping Shabbat and doing things with their families, and gave a lot of interviews, and jealousy came up. That's exactly what it says. I will move you to jealousy. Provoke them to jealousy by those who are not a nation. So here we go. Jealousy. Is that why nobody wants anybody else to be an Israelite? Because you're not reading the Torah says. You're just reading, out your feelings. You're coming out of your feelings. You're not reading anything. You're coming from your feelings. So the church is not a nation, but a very divided mass of confusion. So just let's debunk the church concept that the church is now Israel. Hebrews 7:12 says, for the priesthood being changed, there is made a necessity, also a change also of the law. Let me read that again. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. So whoever wrote the book of Hebrews is telling you the Torah is going to change. But according to Christianity's God, Messiah, however you look at Jesus, he says in Luke 16:17, it is easier for heaven and earth to pass than one tittle of the law to fail. So how exactly did the law change if heaven and earth has not passed? So this is definitely not a nation on the same page. The church is a divided mess, is what it is. So replacement theology. The church now wants Israel to be the church, and Jesus is now the new high priest. Jesus is now taking the place of the Levites. But if Jesus says not one tittle of the law will pass in Luke 16:17, what does Deuteronomy and Jeremiah say about the Levites? Deuteronomy 18:1-5. The priests, the Levites, all the tribe of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the offerings of the Lord made by fire and his portion. Therefore, they shall have no inheritance among their brethren. The Lord is their inheritance, as he said to them. And it shall be the priest's due from the people from those who offer a sacrifice, whether it is a bull or sheep, they shall give it to the priest, give to the priest the shoulder, the cheeks, and the stomach. The first fruits of your grain and your new wine and your oil and the first of the fleece of your sheep, you shall give him, for the Lord your God has chosen him out of all your tribes to stand to minister in the name of the Lord, him and his sons forever. Not a word about Judah. And before you bring up Melchizedek, go watch my video or get my book, Psalm 110 and the Kings of Righteousness. David and all his righteous sons, Hezekiah, Josiah, they were of the order of Melchizedek because that just means a righteous king. Jeremiah 33:17-18. Jesus was never a king. And go look at my Isaiah 53:9 part 2 on Tanakh Talk, and I'll show you that Jesus wasn't righteous either. He broke some laws, and according to the New Testament, you break one law, you broke them all. So that kills that argument. Jeremiah 33:17-18. For thus says the Lord God, David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel, nor shall the priests. The Levites lack a man to offer burnt offerings before me, to kindle grain offerings, and to sacrifice continually. So there we have the house of David and the house of Levi is going to have somebody doing their specific job continually. And again, Luke 16:17 says, this has not failed, because heaven and earth has not failed. And Christians love to go to Deuteronomy 18, but they don't read verse 5. I don't know why they don't want to read that verse. It's right there. The verse is very clear. So the Ashkenazi Jews are converts and are seen by many to be fake or imposter Jews. Why? No, nobody wants them to be Jews if they think they're fake just because they're white. If they were African, would they have the same problem? Ethiopian Jews don't get this. They don't get the same energy that people put on the Ashkenazi Jews. So, but if they're Edomites, then they can convert, right? Because they'll say, oh, they're Edomites. Well, the Edomites can convert. According to the Torah, they can convert. They speak Hebrew. They have preserved the Torah and the oral Torah for hundreds of years. Not to say nobody else has, but they for sure have. They have writings that go back a long time. Ignorance and reverse racism is the main problem here, but there is something else. Jealousy, like we talked about before. Where's the jealousy coming from? As far as preservation, Hebrew, I could be wrong, but I hear that the Yemenite Israelites or Yemenite Jews, however you want to say that, have the better dialect of the original Hebrew than any other Hebrew speakers. So even the Yemenites, which are not African Americans, right? But the Yemenites, they kept the Torah, they preserved it and the language very well over hundreds of years. So riches, status, and power. Where's the jealousy coming from? Because if Ashkenazi Jews were trailer park Jews, I don't think nobody would care, right? They'd be like, oh, those poor guys want to learn a little bit of Torah, you know what I'm saying? Let's give them some charity. But since they're rich, it's a different perspective. So the Ashkenazi Jewish world has many rich and powerful people. Like we talked about, we're going to address, do they run Hollywood? Do they run the rap industry? We get into that. It came up, so we're going to get to that. And the Black Hebrew Israelites are in the ghettos and are recently waking up in the last 100 years, identifying as Hebrews on a major scale. So not to say that all the Black Hebrew Israelites are in the ghettos, but the majority of them come from that world, to my knowledge, as far as I know, and I'm not saying all of them, but many do. They're not preaching from Beverly Hills, or the Hamptons. They're on the street corners in New York, and when they go home, it's not, they're not going to the mansions, most of them. So there are famous Black actors, musicians, and athletes that have converted or return to their heritage. Sammy Davis Jr., actor. Shine, rapper. Nassim Black, rapper slash producer. Mari Stoudemire, NBA, right? Black Hebrew Israelites claim the Ashkenazi Jews know who the real children of Israel are and are not acknowledging them. There is some truth to this, but there's a case of painting with a broad brush. So we just see some very famous Black Jews, right? So nobody's denying that there's Black Jews. They're just not as famous or popular as the Ashkenazi Jews are. So, and the claim that the Ashkenazi Jews know who the real children of Israel are and not acknowledging them. So, unfortunately, there's some racist Jews, Ashkenazi Jews as well, but a lot of them aren't. Who marched with Dr. Martin Luther King? Some were Jews. Jews do a lot of philanthropy in the world. Not to say nobody else does, but since we're talking about that, they do that. They give away a lot of money. So many people that leave the church and try to connect to the Torah via the Jewish community are met with unwelcoming arms on many occasions. I can personally attest to this. Now, I didn't get like the hand or nothing like that, like get away, but I didn't get, big hugs and kisses or nothing like that. Some people would talk to me and some wouldn't. Some were very nice and some would sit down and actually warn, this is very, this is not church. This is not Christianity. These are laws. This is not something you can do when you feel like it. So I appreciate the ones who actually took time to talk to me when I would go to the synagogue and sit down and just see what it's like to even go inside of a synagogue. I learned a lot. And the ones that I talked to, I didn't keep in touch with them, but I'm very grateful that they were able to explain some things to me that I had no idea about at the time. This was many years ago. So for the reason that, people talk about Jews is because some of them have the same problem as the Black Hebrew Israelites. They don't think anybody else can be a Jew because they're ignorant. A lot of them just are not well studied. They're not well learned. They're Jew in name, but they're not religious. Some of them, they don't go to yeshiva. They don't know these things. They're isolated in their communities and they don't see no Black people. And when they do, oh, he must not be Jewish. He's Black or he's whatever, Mexican, whatever, right? There are many reasons for this. Converts marrying for money, status is one of the reasons that they aren't so friendly to converts or anybody coming into their world, because people see money and power and they can get to that through marriage. And unfortunately, people are fake. A lot of people do it for the wrong reasons, and they convert, but they didn't have no intention of keeping the Torah. They just converted to get that money. So, once you get hip to that as a community, you're like, you know what? We're just going to avoid y'all altogether. And this ain't specifically against Black people. This is about anybody who's trying to convert and come to their neighborhoods. There's not even not Ashkenazi Jews, but there's Syrian communities who don't accept converts. There's other Jews that are not white that don't accept converts either because of this same problem of people marrying for money and status. And unfortunately, like I said, ignorance, isolation, and racism also plague the Ashkenazi Jews. So they're not out the hook either for being racist. And whatever else they do, as far as their involvement in the slave trade or the music business or any other things that's illegal according to the Torah. So before anybody labels me the defender of the Ashkenazi Jews or any other Jew that's not a African American, this is across the board for anybody. Anybody. A light to the nations. So Jews were never known as proselytizing people because the wisdom of the Torah was the light that drew people from around the world to them. When you have a candle, moths come to the candle. You turn a light on, moths come to the light. Things that draw people in is wisdom and knowledge and understanding of things. You have a great speaker, their reputation is going to precede them, right? People are going to, oh man, I heard the speaker, you should come listen to him. 2 Kings 5:1-3. Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Syria. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, if only my master were with the prophet who was in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy. That's that light shining. That's somebody saying, hey, we got some people who can help you. And people know people's reputations, right? When you read the story, what happened? The king sent a letter to the king of Israel, and Naaman eventually got healed. Word of mouth. That light that was in this girl who saw a problem. Now, she didn't say, go and convert. She just said, if only my master were with the prophet who was in Samaria. She didn't tell Naaman to go be a Jew. She just said, go see what's up. 1 Kings 4:34. And men of all nations from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom came to hear the wisdom of Solomon. They heard of the wisdom. They heard, right? They were drawn to the light. Solomon didn't send out missionaries. 1 Kings 8:41. Moreover, concerning a foreigner who was not of your people Israel, but has come from a far country for your name's sake, your reputation precedes you. They heard about the Most High's dealings with Israel. They heard about the wisdom of Solomon. That light drew the people to Israel. That's why they're not proselytizing. So instead of shunning potential converts or bloodline descendants of Israel that have realized who they are, they are not met with love. And I explain one of the reasons why. This causes hatred and animosity, right? Converts are turned away 3 times after that they are accepted. So the reason for this is to avoid bringing in people who are not serious and to make them aware there is no reversing the process. Very serious thing to convert. Ecclesiastes 5:4. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed. Conversion is basically making a vow to God that I'm going to join your nation and I'm going to keep the laws. And it's a lot to learn. A lot to learn. So you're going to get turned away 3 times before they let you convert. They're not looking for converts. They're looking for people who are serious, and their job is to be a light to the nations. And the laws of Noah are another way of connecting to God without being Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish to have a relationship with God. The Jews had a very famous, they called him the Rebbe. He talked about actually teaching the laws of Noah, not necessarily sending rabbis out to proselytize, but basically, from my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, but having the actual rabbis of that generation begin to study and teach the laws of Noah that they weren't previously just weren't concerned with. You know, the Holocaust had happened, and you know, there was world wars going on back in the day, so people were like rebuilding their lives in the 40s up into the through the 70s, there was wars, the Vietnam War. Like there was a lot of wars for a period of like 30 years in America alone. So people, they were rebuilding their lives, running all over the place, just trying to get their life together. So, but I heard in a speech, talked about the nations keeping the 7 laws of Noah. And then a lot of rabbis, were not teaching these things. So today, there's a lot of rabbis teaching it. Now, you have to be careful because you have a lot of people who are teaching it in a controversial manner, meaning everything is not allowed for a Gentile to do that an Israelite does. Excuse me. Some of these rabbis are allowing things according to halakha are not allowed. They're being very lenient. Some are very strict, but some are lenient and some of them are not doing people any justice, because now you have people basically creating a new religion that's half Jewish, half B'nai Noach. And that's not how it's supposed to work. You can't be a B'nai Noach, basically living like a Jew. Either you convert or you just stay a B'nai Noach. So I don't want to go too much into that, but just be careful of, what you're teaching and who you're learning from on both sides. So the Ben Noach awakening. Today, there are many people learning the 7 laws of Noah. Many have Jewish ancestry, but are not aware of it. And many are simply leaving other religions and are joining themselves to the God of Israel. So, people are waking up. There's a lot of people in the world who don't know that they're Israelites. Pretty sure. Jeremiah 16:19. O Lord, my strength and my fortress, my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, worthlessness, and unprofitable things. This brings people to become Jews or an Israelite, or leave the man-made religions and follow the universal laws for all mankind. So there's an awakening right now. People are coming out of the church. They're leaving, idolatry from whatever form that may be from, and they're turning to the God of Israel. That's a wonderful thing. They're learning the laws. They're learning Hebrew. It's big. It's a big thing. So again, you don't have to be an Israelite to have a relationship with God. Noah was not an Israelite, and he was saved from a flood. Job has got one of the biggest books in the Tanakh, and he wasn't an Israelite. And you could still be rich. Job was rich. Job lived a long time. Like, you can have a lot of benefits. Read Job 5:17 through 27. Man, you good. Right? Just study. It's okay to listen to people, but fact check them, right? Look it up. Look up these verses. Don't believe nothing that I've said. Look it up. So, Jews teaching non-Jews, like I said earlier, I'm not going to go too deep in it, but I do have to touch on some things. So this is a very controversial situation. The danger is that teaching Torah to beginners or anyone new to spirituality can be a great thing. However, teaching Torah to former Christians can be disastrous. Like I said, creating new religions. I'm not going to go into all the details, but like I said, I do have to touch on a few things. People have a tendency to take what they learn and modify it, potentially creating a new religion. Christianity is a result of Jews using the Tanakh to promote a new religion and have turned a Jew into God. Do y'all realize that? The Christians turn a Jewish person into God. So the Christians want the world to worship a Jew. How do you think people who hate Jews feel about that? Not only do we not like the Jews, but now he's God? What? They don't like that. And the Torah don't teach that. So again, they created a new religion. So they have taken verses out of context, omitted words, added words. or simply introduce an entirely new doctrine and claim it comes from the Tanakh, when in fact it is the opposite of what the Tanakh teaches. And I have many videos showing this point. I got a whole series of books, the False Fulfillment Citation series on Amazon, goes through all the famous chapters that they love to deal with: Psalm 22, Isaiah 53, Daniel 9, right? Just on and on and on. So the majority today, the majority of the Ashkenazi Jews are not trained in dealing with this topic, and many arguments are now on the table concerning how to approach this matter. So the Black Hebrew Israelites, many of them do a lot of studying. They do. They got YouTube videos, hours and hours long of content, lots of content. Most of it is a Christian perspective, though. The Ashkenazi Jews are more Talmudic and not so much Tanakh heavy in their learning or teaching. And teaching somebody Talmud who doesn't know what the Talmud is or have a Christian background that pretty much demonizes the Talmud, nobody's going to listen to that. And if you don't know how to relate to people from the actual Bible, what we call the Torah or the Tanakh, the Old Testament, because you're not so much learned in that, you're not going to get very far. So, like I said, this is why the Rebbe that they called, the man that they called the Rebbe, said, you know, I need to start learning these 7 laws of Noah and teaching people. So, you know, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes and everybody got the reasons why they do stuff. So the Black Hebrew Israelites are bringing people's attention to the Bible and to the Torah, but by doing basically reverse racism, they're doing more damage. And the Ashkenazi Jews, who don't even really engage anybody else and who are racist and who are involved in things that are not, you know, kosher, they're doing the same thing. They're doing damage to the Jewish, you know, identity, and they're not helping people. And of course, everybody's got their bad seeds. Many Black Jews, Hebrew Israelites, are not like that. But some of them are, and some of them are very famous. And there's some good Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews that are very famous and help a lot of people as well. So again, you know, everybody's got their bad seeds. So here's some of the things that I was talking about: Jews teaching non-Jews, Shabbat, holiday, circumcision, tefillin, kosher, and prayer. All these topics, you know, some of them are controversial because, you know, these are points of contention. The Shabbat and circumcision are covenants between God and the Jews. It specifically says these things. The holidays are events that are Jewish history. So anyone participating in these things as an obligatory command will be living a lie. Again, if you want to observe something, that's one thing. But when you make people or tell people that God commanded you to do it, that's not true if you're not an Israelite. Nowhere in the Torah are these things commanded to the nations. Nowhere. Recommendations, participation is different from obligatory. Because it says if a foreigner wants to eat the Passover with you, he's got to be circumcised. So again, there was stipulations to these things. But it doesn't say, and the foreigner must observe the Passover or he's cut off from my people. It doesn't say nothing like that. To rest on the Sabbath and acknowledge their holidays is not a violation. But when you teach or obligate others to do so, that is creating a new religion. If you don't want to work on Shabbat, okay, fine, don't work on Shabbat. But you probably don't even know the 39 restrictions that come with Shabbat because you're not familiar with the oral Torah. Without the oral Torah, you can't even translate the Bible. Why is Israel spelled with a shin and not a sonic? Where does it tell you how to circumcise a baby? Nobody can open up a Bible and say, see right here, this is how you circumcise a baby. They say to circumcise a baby, but it don't tell you how. It don't tell you how to slaughter an animal. It tell you how it tells you what to do. It tells you to slaughter an animal, but it don't tell you how. And we can go on and on about what to do versus how to do it. On and on. And I got a video about why don't Jews and Christians accept the oral tradition. Got a video on that. So Jews have 39 restrictions on the Sabbath, like I said. Without the oral tradition, you will most likely violate the Shabbat anyway. So, this is one reason why Jews do not proselytize. It is better to let someone come seeking the truth because they will be more willing to learn than to be tricked or given a guilt trip like the missionaries do. If you don't accept Jesus, you're going to hell. Like, that's a guilt trip, right? That's like, wow, that's pretty blunt. God himself said he would gather outcasts and people themselves would come to join Israel on their own. So there's a process. If God wants you, you're going to get the message. You're going to get the memo. So this is one reason that you don't see Jews proselytizing. Because people get mad. Well, if they the Jews and they know we the Israelites, how come they don't come and how come they don't say nothing? Like, well, there's reasons for everything. Just because you don't know, don't make somebody evil. Yet I will gather to him others besides those who are gathered to him. We read Isaiah 56:8. The Lord God who gathers the outcasts of Israel says, yet I will gather to him others besides those who are gathered to him. Who is these people? It could be people who think they're B'nai Noach. Who knows? What your genealogy goes back to? Isaiah 11:12. He will set up a banner for the nations. Why would God set up a banner for the nations if he doesn't care about them? Like some of the Black Hebrew Israelites say, if you're not an Israelite, you're not going to be saved. Then why is he setting up a banner for these people? And I will assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth, not America only, because America is not the four corners of the earth. Zechariah 8:23, thus says the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men of all the languages of the nations shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Again, he's not going out gathering. He's not going out proselytizing. It says that they're going to grab on him. They're going to grab on his skirt and say, man, we going with you. Can I roll with you? This is one reason why they're not proselytizing, because y'all not reading the Tanakh. Y'all in Paul's letters. No. That's not where it's at. So an unfriendly person pursues selfish ends. East, west, north, 127 countries, Ethiopia to India, Pathros, Kush, Egypt, Iran, China, and the four corners of the earth. I went over verses for all these things, showing where Israel is scattered around the world. That's a lot of places, and these are huge countries. India is huge by itself. China is huge by itself, let alone the four corners of the earth. Ethiopia, come on now. How can you isolate North America as the only place we find Israel? Just stop being selfish. Stop it. Proverbs 18:1. An unfriendly person pursues selfish ends, and against all sound judgment starts quarrels. Don't tell me y'all don't see what happens on the corners where these Hebrew Israelites are screaming at people. They cussing, and it's just completely like, if y'all got the truth, nobody want it. Not like that. I'm not about to bring my grandma to that and say, hey, grandma, listen to this word. From y'all, no. So we're gonna, get to part 4 about, Hollywood and the rap game and stuff. But this is part 3. Hope you learned something. And do your research. Don't believe nothing I said. And shalom. And we'll see you next time.